In today's video, we're gonna edit some photos I captured in Ocean City, Maryland, USA. I'm a firm believer that if you want to learn anything in life, you have to learn by doing. And if you'd like to fast track your learning when it comes to editing raw files in Adobe Lightroom, I encourage you to download the raw files so you can play along at home. Let's take a quick look at the photos we're going to be editing. And this was by a pier, obviously. I wasn't on the pier, but I'll show you the exact location that I took the photo. And you may notice that the horizon isn't level, and that's because it was kind of sketchy and I kind of wanted to get in and get out. And right here is the exact location of the spot. So after the sunset photo, I saw I still had a little bit of light, and the Ferris wheel over here was lit up, and I said, let me run over there and capture a long exposure photo while there's still some light in the background. And it came out all right. I was kind of limited as to where I could put my tripod, and with the current parking situation, this is the best that I could do. Here's a drone shot of Ocean City, Maryland water tank. I think it's a water tank. If it's not a water tank, don't kill me. And then here are two photos taken with my drone from a distance, kind of getting the whole scene. And again, the horizon was kind of wonky because it was super windy, but you get what you get. And let's just get right into editing without wasting any time. All right, so the first thing I do with any photo is remove chromatic aberration and enable profile corrections. All right, so let's do that here. All right, so chromatic aberration is like these color fringes, and I'm probably talking Greek, but don't worry about it, just check that. And profile corrections pretty much fixes some of the distortion and gets rid of the vignetting. And here, let's go to DJI, and the model is, go with Mavic Pro. That's usually a good starting point. So here I'm gonna select this and sync and check none. Let's go to calibration. Nope, where is it? Lens correction. All right, synchronize. All right, so let's see what we can do with this photo. Let's go to Adobe Landscape. Already our colors are popping. And let's fix the horizon. Now, I have two ways to do this. Usually I just eyeball it, or you could go to, right here, there's a little line tool. And you just draw a line, and theoretically that should be straight, but for some reason, it just never looks straight to me, so I just like to eyeball it. For your photos not to look amateurish is you don't want some crazy horizon line like looking like that. You need to have straight lines. So that's the first thing that I always start out with. Let's do that. All right, that looks good. Now exposure, let's bring down our highlights to bring some detail back in the bright areas. And shadows, see if I go too much, it kind of doesn't look very pleasing. So let's just go about there, add some more whites. And pop a little bit more black. And now let's go back to the crop tool. So I'm kind of jumping all over the place, but I always start out with the profile corrections, and then the cropping, and then my exposure was pretty good, but that's usually the first place that I'll start. And again, I may be speaking Greek, I just want to keep this video short, so if you know a little bit of Lightroom, this will help. If you know nothing, don't worry, I got you covered, as I'm going to work on an entire series on everything you need to know about Lightroom. Everything looking good. Let's go to white balance, let's go to auto, see what that does. I kind of liked it the way it was. Again, like really particular about keeping lines straight, but I'm finally happy there. All right, let's move on, and let's add some sharpening, just a little bit. That is good. You never want to over sharpen. Let's go back, add some clarity and vibrance. Now, if you don't know what any of the sliders do, the best bet is just to go crazy and see what happens. So if I take the exposure and go crazy, I kind of get an idea of what's going on. So with vibrance, it adds a little bit more color as opposed to saturation where everything is just like super colorful. Actually, let's go a little bit more colorful. I could do it that way. Or I could go into the individual colors and get this target adjustment tool, go to saturation, and I can make the blue less blue, or I can crank it up all the way, just like my doggy snoring. So you never want to go all the way, because then you're gonna get some artifacts and it's just gonna look funny. Let's make this orange pop. And that is pretty good. And this kind of bugs me a little bit, but I'm just gonna leave it as is. Or am I? Let's go to the adjustment brush. Actually, no. Let's go right here. This is called the spot removal tool. You could just hit Q, and I'm just gonna paint over that, and done. All right, that looks pretty good. I think I'm happy. Like, this kind of bugs me a little bit. So let's go to spot removal. You can just click this thingy right here and paint over it, and we are done. So that looks pretty good. Let's zoom in over here. I hit the Z button to zoom in, and this I can leave. I'm just seeing if anything kind of bugging me. Everything looks good. Exposure wise, we're at ½ a second at f/18 ISO 50. Now the horizon line is bugging me a little bit. Let's do that. And that looks pretty good. And just for fun, let's add a vignette. Yeah, I like that. So right now over here, still a little bit too bright for me, so I'm gonna hit the M for the graduated filter, and I'm just gonna go drag that over there. If I wanted to make it brighter, I'd go that way. I can just bring down the exposure. I could also bring down the shadows the other way. Hit M, and that is better, but I'm not crazy about it. Let's move this sucker over here. Hit M to just hide that. And sorry for the silence. I'm just trying to see if I'm happy with it. And that's the thing about when it comes to the editing photos part, like you could spend hours on one photo and just like keep editing until you feel something you're kind of vibing with. And I'm sure if I were to edit some of my previous edits, it's gonna be totally different because editing is mood based. I may be in the mood for some saturated colors, or I may be in the mood for some black and white images. It all depends. And right now I'm feeling this vibe, so I am going to not move on yet. Let's just play with the temperature, and I can make it warmer, or I can make it cooler. So again, when it comes to editing, it's all subjective. Like you may like more blue, or you may like it more on the warmer side. And right now I'm just feeling the blue, so I'm gonna just leave it there and move on. All right. So this photo was taken at 4 seconds, f/13 ISO 50. Let me hide that. And you should be able to do this in 1, 2, 3. Let's make it a little bit brighter with the exposure highlights about there. Whites, I don't want to like lose detail in the bright parts. So I'm watching the histogram over here. So let's head over to the saturation slider and click here for the target adjustment. And I'm gonna click on the red and drag up. Now my reds are more red. Let's make this blue more blue. And that looks pretty good. Let's head over to the white balance and add more magenta. Nah, don't like it. Now again, I'm just thinking out loud, and that's how the editing process goes. You kind of like just play around and see what works and what doesn't work. So tap R for the crop, and let's go like this. Because right now there's too much dead space in the bottom. And again, that's the best that I was able to do because of the cars and the lens combo I had. That's why you really gotta be conscious of when you're shooting to keep everything level. But this was the best that I could do. And let's just go down the develop module, let's add some sharpening, and over there, if you pull the sharpening up to the red, that is gonna cause problems. Let's add some clarity to make it pop. And bada boom, bada bing. Do I wanna add a vignette? Yeah, that's pretty cool. Now, editing photos in Lightroom may seem scary because there are all these sliders and options, but it's really not. This whole process may seem scary, but it really takes you 2 seconds just to edit everything. Like, watch this. All right, go in here, gonna go to R, make my horizon straight, and bring down the highlights. And do I wanna go add more detail there? Nope. Add some blacks, like that. Whites, let's make this image pop. And I'm gonna add overall color to everything. My horizon's still wonky. And bada boom, bada bing. Now here it's still kind of bright, so let me bring down the highlights a little bit. And I think I'm going to add more contrast, so let's do that over here. And that's pretty good. Horizon straight. So again, you see that it took me like 2 seconds to edit the photo, and it's really not bad once you have an understanding of all the tools available in Lightroom. And here it's kind of a little bit dark, so I'm just gonna open up the shadows some more. And that is pretty good. All right, so let's move on. So first thing we're gonna do is hit the R button to fix the horizon. And that looks pretty good. Now let's just tweak it a little bit more, like right over there. All right, this is the part that you really have to be careful and nail. All right, so let's look at our exposure. When I edit photos, I always look at the histogram, and it's pretty good. Let's just bring down the highlights a little bit, bring up the whites so it just touches the edge, and this triangle turns white. Add some blacks that way. And a little bit of clarity, some vibrance, and that is looking a million times better. A little bit of saturation. And this green area, I'm not too crazy about, but we'll come back to that in a second. Sharpening, let's turn it up a little bit. And right here, you could already see that it is in a good place. Let's go back to white balance, and let's see, cloudy, shade, kind of like the warmer tones. Somewhere around there is pretty good. Now again, editing is mood based. Like if I were to edit this photo 2 hours from now or tomorrow, I'll probably have something totally different, but this is where I'm at in my life right now. Back to over here, saturation, target adjustment, and I'm gonna bring this down. I'm just gonna click down to get rid of some of that green. Now when I do that, I'm just making sure I'm not losing any color over here, and that's pretty good. And what else could we do? Let's crop it over here a little bit more, just because there's too much dead space on the bottom. This thingy is kind of bugging me, so I'm gonna hold or tap the Q button for the spot removal tool. I'm gonna slide with 2 fingers down on my trackpad. If you have a mouse, you can click down to change the brush size. That's pretty good. No one's gonna notice that ripple. It looks natural. Now that is pretty cool. I'm just looking at it because it's kind of flat, so let's add some more contrast that way. We can do it here. That looks pretty good. Now that I edited this photo, I could just paste the settings right here and just hold previous. bada boom, bada bing. Everything that I did to the previous photo is pasted here. And then all I gotta do is really fix the horizon. And that looks pretty good. Except this boat is kind of bugging me that it's cropped out. So let's open this up a little bit. And let's do the horizon again. Key for spot removal. I'm gonna remove this over here. Now the spot removal from the previous edit is over here, but that's not gonna be a big deal. Now I got these little waves, so I'm just gonna crop that out and like that. And this dot over here is bugging me, so I'm gonna remove that with the spot removal. Done. So when you import the files, it's gonna look like this, but if you go over here to snapshots, click on Mikey's edit, and then boom, there you go. So I hope you guys learned something. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, share it along with friends and family that you think will benefit from this. And the only way to learn anything is to learn by doing.